Hello everybody, my name is Kevin with TravelScoot USA, and today we're going to be looking at swapping out the rear tires of the TravelScoot Escape. As we can see here, it looks like this scooter was used primarily outside. It's pretty dirty. I would say that it's used on a lot of trails around the property. So I've taken off the controller just so we can see the inner workings of what we're doing today. So if you don't see the controller, don't worry about it, that's fine. What we're gonna do is we will need to have a couple tools here. Now you can use the Allen wrenches that we provide with the TravelScoot, but just to make it easier, I just grab one of these bad boys, or you can get, I think these are $20 on Amazon. It's automatic, so it's electric battery powered, very easy to use. So you can get that if you want. But we're going to be using the 5, the 4, the 3, and the 2.5 for this job here. We'll also need an 18mm open wrench. Here's what the two tires look like. Obviously, the left tire diameter is a little bit wider because inside the left wheel is the motor. And then the right tire is quite a bit thicker. All right, so we're going to start on the left side here. I'm going to grab my 2.5, and we're going to start by removing the screws. A big tip, whenever you're working on any type of mobility scooter or otherwise, if you're having an Allen wrench, make sure that it's all the way in. If it's not all the way in, you can strip these screws, and you don't want that. So if you have, for example, dirt or something that's inside, clean out the dirt first. If it's not, if you notice that it's not in all the way, you could always tap it with very lightly with a mallet or something. Just make sure that it's seated all the way, okay? So we're going to completely remove these screws. You'll notice that there's a block here, and that block gives us space so the tire fits. So these are longer than the other side. All right, that's what the block looks like. And we're going to move this to the side. Next, I'm going to swap out for my 5mm. And with this, we need 2 of them. Again, I want to make sure it's seated all the way. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And we're just going to loosen it up. There's an axle inside the wheel. We really just need to remove one side. Once we get this off, I'll show you. Next, you'll need something long. It could be a screwdriver. I like this because it's rounded, and we're going to just tap out the axle from this side, okay? You'll notice as this comes off, there's a spacer. This spacer goes on the inner portion of the right wheel. With that off, I'm going to move the scooter aside for now. And we're going to remove this hubcap. All right, so for this, I'm going to use my automatic driver, just because it's going to make it a lot easier. I've put the 3 on here. Sorry, the 4. This is the 4. Again, you want to make sure that it's all the way seated. This makes it so much easier to do any type of work. Again, about $20 on Amazon. All right, so with the hubcap off, we are now going to get the inner screws. I've put the 5mm on this. And with a tool like this, you just want to get it started and then we'll use the automatic function. Again, make sure it's seated all the way to the bottom. All right, from here, we should just be able to remove the hair holes. We have a whole blog on this. It's good to clean these out every once in a while. You can see how nasty that can get. It may, over time, affect the performance of your scooter. So every once in a while, I would say maybe annually, check for hair holes and get those removed. All right. So now we're going to, if we need to, most of the time you don't, usually you can just pull these apart just like that. The tire just comes right off. You'll notice that there are grooves here and there are grooves on the tire. Just want to match those up just like that. Put the cap back on. When we put everything back, just make sure that you have more holes on this side. You should be having 8 holes. You don't want to be doing anything from this side because we're working from the hub side, okay? So we're starting with the longer ones. Everything should fit flush down at the bottom. If it doesn't, then you know you have the wrong side. This really does not take long. And then what I'll do at the end is I will swap it over and I'll tighten it all the way. Of course, we want all of our screws as tight as we can. Just make sure that you're putting these Allen heads all the way to the bottom. All right, that's good. Now we're going to put the hub back on. Just make sure it's lined up. Swap over to the bore. And then again, I'm going to tighten. Okay, we are done with that. Now what we're going to do is put this back on the scooter. Again, we did have, of course, we want to take the time and clean the hardware off right now. So I'm going to go grab a little towel, clean it up, and then we'll be right back to put this on. All right, so I've got like a little scratch pad here. I'm going to just clean up all the dirt. At this time, I'm also going to clean the inner portion. And you can't see, but I'll get this side as well. All right. That looks much better. Okay, so now that everything's ready and clean, we're going to take the wheel, make sure that the hub is facing the inside of the scooter. And we're just going to lift it up So hold it here with your hand. Take the axle. You're going to insert it from the side. And then from here, you can just kind of hold it. So that's really, really easy. Once it's inside, just lift it like that. And then we're going to feed it through. Keep in mind that inside of this, we've got two bearings, and then there's that tube. When we took off the tire, you saw that tube that was sitting there. And so we might need to have something in here just to align everything. That way the axle can make it all the way through without any issues. And we don't want to pop off this, this bearing. Okay, so that looks like that's good. Going through. All right. Now I can take the spacer, feed the axle through the spacer, and that's it. We're going to use the 5mm. And anytime I can do things by hand, I'm just going to screw this on. And then use my other 5mm here. Again, if this isn't seated all the way, you can easily strip the screw. So make sure that both are seated all the way in. And just like that, the wheel's now on. I'm then going to take this spacer and then line up the holes on the brake. And a little trick, these holes, you would think that they're centered, but they're not. They're more towards the end. So if you can't see very well when you're putting these on, just keep in mind that these holes are towards the end. It makes it much easier. Hopefully you can get that. All right. Just like that, super easy. Okay. Okay, so we moved everything around. Now we're looking at the left side. Again, the motor is inside the hub. This is why it's called a hub motor. I've got the controller off. Normally, you don't need to remove the controller except for this portion. So this is what connects to the controller. You'll see that there are two arrows. There's an arrow here, and then there's going to be an arrow on the controller, which I'll show you. Okay, so again, you don't need to completely remove the controller. You just need to disconnect the controller from the motor. It's attached down here at the bottom of the battery tray. Okay, so those two arrows are aligned. Sometimes there's white paint on it, sometimes there's not. So they are there though. So with that done, I'll get this out of the way so you can see. We're going to take our 18mm open wrench. We're going to loosen this. Okay, we don't need to remove it all the way. Just loosen it enough so that way we can get the wheel off. Even with it loose, we can remove the screw on my side. Don't worry about getting over here. There's really nothing to see. All right. Okay, with that screw off, now we're going to remove the motor. That is, once I get the brakes off here. All right, brake band's off. Now we can actually move this. Okay. So with this motor, we're going to remove everything on the motor wire or motor cable. This is called a lock washer. Okay, so the lock washer is going to be on the inside of the fork. Okay, it fits into this slot right here. This is what keeps the motor on. Okay, it's very important. We don't want to have the lock washer facing inside. We want it facing outside because this can go on the inner portion of the fork and it's going to connect like that on the inside. Previous motors, they were on the outside. With the Escape, you want it on the inside. Okay. Now we're going to remove the hub. And this is going to be a 3mm. All right, one last thing, we've got this little washer. What's interesting about the motor axle, there is a flat portion. So this isn't circular like the other axles on the scooter. So we've got this special washer that has a flat edge on it. Okay, so now we're going to take our three. These especially, you want to make sure that this is seated all the way. If you need to, you can even take like a little mallet. I've got a mallet here in my bench. Not very hard, just lightly to make sure it's in all the way. We'll get it started. Okay. Perfect. I'm going to switch over. Okay. It's been a very long time since I've changed these batteries out or charged these batteries. So hopefully this doesn't die on me. All right. Now this part can be difficult for some because you'll notice that it doesn't just pop off. I'm going to need to get a flathead screwdriver and we'll go from there. All right, so to remove the metal hub, we have a couple things. This is a flathead screwdriver, nothing special. I've seen people use a file before as well. This is generally for removing plastic on vehicles. This is just a general kit that you can get, but basically we're just looking at these screws. These are kind of like set screws. There's two of them. I generally start on this side, and we just kind of work our way up. And you really want to be patient with this. Don't force anything. Just go little by little. It can take some time. Just be patient with it. Now I'm going to go over here and just go around. It might take a couple times around, but it'll come off. Just be patient. So I heard that come off. It loosened. Okay, just like that. You'll notice that nothing got scratched under here. Everything's looking good. So the motor does just come right out. And this is where we're going to remove the tire. So let me set this to the side. And I just look at these thicker portions because there's thin portions and thick portions where the screws are. That's where I put my thumbs. And then I just push. And I work my way around to do it little by little. You could also probably just, pop a hammer in there, but I don't like to hit anything. You don't want to mess anything up there. So just push. Again, you're going to be patient. Doesn't take much, just little by little. like everything in life, you just have to have a little patience. And then from here, I can just usually pull it off. And you just work it off. One side and the other, just like that. Here's my new tire. Again, I'm going to match up the grooves. And from here, it's a little bit easier because I can set down the hub, then line it up. This is going to be tight. And then we're just going to push down, just like that. And use your body weight if you want. Just like that. Next, I'm going to take my motor. And again, we're looking for these black holes, okay? You can see that these are like kind of like set screws or pegs. We need to line them up next to the main hole. So these are dark, and the set pins are lighter. Okay, so we want to match those with the light. If they are not matched up, then it's not going to go in. Okay, so you can see, maybe you can see that. It's lined up there. And then, of course, nothing's going to happen unless this is all the way through. So kind of dealing with both sides at the same time. All right, you can see that the axle is all the way through, and that's when we're ready to place the screws. Keep in mind that the axle, if you have anything, like for example, this is basically like a metal door, but if I just have this down, it's going to scratch up the table. So if you're doing this inside on a dining room table, make sure that you set something down so you don't scratch it. All right, so with our set pins aligned, we're going to do a little bit at a time. You don't want to screw it all the way in, just get it started. And do a little bit at a time. I usually like to work with the opposites. So start here, go to the opposite side, go to the left, opposite side, and just work your way around from here. Okay. And then finish it up with the manual. And get these as tight as possible. You might feel a couple popping. Okay, so popping is fine. It just means that it's settling in. And as we go down, even though these look like they were flush, the tighter we get, then these start, they're not coming up. That just means that it wasn't all the way tight. I've seen high school kids work on these with just the videos that we provide. So if you can't do this, don't worry about it. If you have a friend or a neighbor, most of the time you just need to be able to turn a screwdriver or Allen wrench and it could be done. Just follow these principles, like making sure that the Allen head is all the way in and you're good to go. All right, now that we've got the tire on and the wheel assembled again, we're going to finish up by putting all the hardware back on. Again, we're going to use the washer. And don't try to force anything. You can bend the washer that way. Again, there's a flat side of it. Start with that. Next, we want to put this facing outward, not inward, outward. Okay, just like that. Now from here, we can just put this back on the scooter. Before I do, I'm going to do a cleaning really quick. Of course, if you have your controller on, which you should, you won't be able to get back here. Looking good. Okay, so there's a flat portion. We're going to slide that in, and then the lock washer will fit right through. Really easy. I'm going to screw that on by hand and grab my 5mm. Tighten that up. And that's it. I'm going to finish up by putting on the last nut. Now we want this nut to be as tight as humanly possible. Perfect. And we're going to finish up by putting the brake back on. Which again, on the block, the holes are more towards the end. There are usually 2 or 3 space washers on these screws. If you need to, you can release this nut at the top. That will loosen it up and make it a little bit easier if you are struggling. Now I'm not seated, okay, so I don't want to just tighten it up. So there we go. Now I'm seated. Perfect. All right. And that is pretty much it. From here, I'm going to connect the controller. Again, I want to match up the arrows. And then from here, you would re-zip tie the controller and reapply your Velcro. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I am just checking it for any type of noise. There is no noise on the brakes, so we're good to go. All right, so not too difficult for the tires. I'm just going to finish up cleaning up the frame a little bit more. Again, you want to do this probably as needed, but please comment on what you would like to see in our next video. Also, like and subscribe because that does help our channel. We're grateful for all of our customers, and if you have any questions or need anything at all, feel free to give us a call or visit our website at TravelScootUSA.com. Thanks for watching and happy scooting.